The Orchard Estate and Smallville Home Park formed a close-knit community where neighbors were more like extended family. Children grew up together, forming lifelong bonds. Among them was 8-year-old Sandra Ku, who lived with her mother, Maria, along with her sisters, Miranda and Simone, and her brother, Thomas. Sandra shared a particularly special connection with those around her. She was full of energy and joy, often seen running around the neighborhood, immersed in play. Gymnastics was one of her favorite activities, and she enjoyed spending time with her friends, embracing the carefree spirit of childhood. Academically, Sandra excelled. She consistently received good grades and was well regarded by both her teachers and classmates. On the day in question, the community followed its usual rhythm. Children attended school and participated in their daily activities, unaware of the events that would soon unfold. After school, it was routine for Sandra to head outside and play with her friends. It was a familiar rhythm for the children in the neighborhood, returning home, greeting their parents, and heading back out with the understanding that they'd return when dinner was ready or when called. That afternoon, Sandra dressed in her favorite Hello Kitty t-shirt. She was especially fond of the character at the time. It was a small but joyful part of her personality, a reflection of the things she loved during her childhood. Later that day, as one of the neighborhood children was called in for dinner, Sandra's absence was quickly noticed. A family member went to look for her, but after about 45 minutes of searching with no sign of her, concern began to rise. Her mother and older sister began combing through the nearby park and surrounding area, but Sandra was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in. Her mother became hysterical, overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. Sandra wasn't at the trailer park, she wasn't with friends, and no one seemed to know where she had gone. The once common assumption that she might be playing a game or hiding no longer felt plausible. The family's growing fear was echoed by the community as the unsettling realization began to take hold. Something was terribly wrong. At 7:54 p.m., a 911 call was received from Maria Chavez, reporting her 8-year-old daughter, Sandra Ku, as missing. Maria explained that Sandra had last been seen playing at a friend's home located at the northwest corner of the trailer park. However, after checking with all of Sandra's friends and receiving no information about her whereabouts, Maria became increasingly concerned and contacted authorities. While law enforcement often receives reports of missing persons, cases involving minors are treated with heightened urgency. Due to the child's age, immediate action is taken. For officers, each situation is approached with a mindset of cautious preparedness, hoping for the best but planning for the worst. Upon arrival at the Cantu residence, responding officers immediately began their investigation. The lead officer approached the home and knocked on the door, marking the beginning of what would become a deeply unsettling case. Maria Chavez told officers that Sandra had come home from school around 3 p.m. and asked to play at a friend's house, something she often did. She was last seen wearing black leggings and a pink Hello Kitty t-shirt. It quickly became clear that Sandra wouldn't have left the mobile home park on her own. Detective Bauer confirmed she wasn't at home or with friends. The search expanded beyond the park. K-9 units were brought in to track her scent. The dogs picked up her trail and led investigators out of the trailer park. The scent trail led the K-9 units to Clover Road. One dog turned west in the direction of Sandra's school, while the other turned east toward the main road leading to the freeway. This development raised serious concern. If Sandra had left the trailer park heading east, whether on foot, by bike, or in a vehicle, locating her would become significantly more difficult. With the dog search yielding inconclusive results, investigators returned to the Cantu residence the following morning. At that point, law enforcement began systematically interviewing family members, looking for any detail that might explain why Sandra had gone missing, whether she had run away or been abducted. During one of these interviews, Sandra's grandfather, Joe, revealed that he had recently installed surveillance cameras after an incident of vandalism involving his van. One of the cameras, mounted at Sandra's residence, faced both the front porch and the street. Investigators knew the footage could provide critical information: what Sandra was wearing, whether she was alone, and if anyone had been with her when she disappeared. Video surveillance can often reveal critical clues, and investigators knew this footage could be key. The entire DVR system was collected from the Cantu residence and taken back to the police department for analysis. Each clip was reviewed carefully, frame by frame. The footage showed Sandra arriving home from school, stepping out of the family car, and walking up to the porch, consistent with her family's account. At 2:57 p.m., Sandra is seen exiting the house, skipping cheerfully and briefly greeting her brother before heading back inside. The video matched reports that she had been playing near trailer number 9, located across from her home. Moments later, Sandra reappears on camera, again skipping. Then something draws her attention. She pauses and looks south toward the far end of the street. What she saw remains unclear, whether it was a person, a vehicle, or something else. She then walks out of the camera's view and does not return. At approximately 6:30 p.m., surveillance footage captured Sandra's mother, Maria, and her older sister, Simone, getting into the family vehicle to search the trailer park in an effort to locate Sandra before contacting authorities. Shortly afterward, Maria placed a 911 call to report her daughter missing. As police arrived on scene, members of the close-knit community joined the search, canvassing nearby trailers and surrounding streets within the mobile home park. Simone, deeply concerned for her younger sister, was actively involved in the search efforts. Recognizing Simone's strong connection with Sandra and her reputation for being street smart, investigators spoke with her directly. She was asked a series of pointed questions. Did she know what happened to her sister? Could she recall where Sandra might have gone? Simone responded that she didn't know and could only speculate. Her answers, though limited, were part of the larger effort to piece together the timeline and circumstances surrounding Sandra's disappearance. Simone spoke with unwavering certainty. She told investigators that Sandra would never have left the trailer park unless she was accompanied by a family member or an adult she deeply trusted. Her conviction left a strong impression. Something bad had happened to Sandra. However, Simone was unable to identify anyone who might be responsible or suggest a direction for the investigation. As the search intensified, law enforcement issued a public appeal for information. A dedicated tip line was set up and publicized through a press release, urging anyone with knowledge about Sandra's whereabouts or last known location to come forward. Detective Bauer revisited Sandra's mother, Maria, seeking additional leads. It was confirmed that Sandra's father lived out of town and had been separated from Maria for many years. According to Maria, Sandra had not seen her father in a long time, and she expressed no concerns regarding his potential involvement. Investigators noted this but did not consider him a likely suspect based on available information. Although Maria expressed no concern about Sandra's father being involved in her disappearance, investigators could not immediately rule him out, as parental involvement is a common consideration in missing child cases. Shortly after the investigation began, Sandra's father voluntarily came forward. He arrived at the police department, visibly distressed and eager to assist. He expressed deep concern and repeatedly stated his determination to find his daughter, even if it meant searching on his own. Investigators urged him to allow law enforcement to handle the search professionally and assured him that every lead would be followed. As part of standard procedure, Sandra's father's whereabouts at the time of her disappearance were thoroughly examined. Investigators, in coordination with the FBI, confirmed that Sandra's father was at work on the day of her disappearance. His alibi was verified through both his employer and cell phone records, allowing authorities to shift their focus elsewhere. Attention then turned to a new person of interest, a karate instructor who resided within the trailer park. Sandra's family reported a disturbing incident from 1 to 2 years earlier, in which the man had kissed Sandra on the lips at the community swimming pool. Given that Sandra had been only 6 years old at the time, the incident raised significant concern among investigators and prompted further scrutiny. Detectives interviewed the karate instructor, who claimed the kiss had been innocent and without intent. In collaboration with the FBI Evidence Response Team, authorities searched his trailer for any indication that Sandra had been there. During the search, they discovered a red substance on the floor that was suspected to be blood. The sample was sent to the lab for analysis. The instructor's alibi was that he had been teaching a karate class at his studio on the north side of town on the evening Sandra disappeared. While investigators worked to verify this claim and awaited lab results, they began preparing for the worst-case scenario. Given the time that had passed, law enforcement deemed it necessary to search the city's landfill. The concern was that if Sandra had met with foul play, evidence such as her clothing or personal belongings might be found there. During the search, an officer discovered a Hello Kitty shirt matching the one Sandra was last seen wearing. The findings significantly escalated concerns about the outcome of the case. The discovery of the Hello Kitty shirt initially raised fears that Sandra's body might also be located in the landfill. However, further examination revealed the shirt was not a match. It was the wrong size and color. This finding reignited a sense of hope among investigators that Sandra might still be alive. At the police station, the karate instructor's alibi was confirmed, and forensic tests showed the red substance found in his trailer did not match Sandra. As a result, he was officially ruled out as a suspect. Later that evening, the community gathered for a candlelight vigil, coming together to pray for Sandra's safe return. For many, the vigil was not only a moment of unity, but also a way to restore faith and hope during an emotionally trying time. It was a powerful moment to witness the community come together in such large numbers. Many detectives, including those assigned to the case, remained on the outskirts of the vigil, quietly observing. The hope was that either Sandra or the person responsible for her disappearance might be drawn to the gathering. At approximately 8:30 p.m., a significant development occurred. A woman named Melissa, a resident of Trailer 57, approached one of the officers. She appeared visibly shaken and reported that she had discovered a note. Melissa explained that while walking northbound along the sidewalk on her street, she had come across the note and believed it could be connected to Sandra's case. The note discovered by Melissa read, "Cantu, locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water, Bachetti Road, Whitehall Road," and was signed witness. This marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, as previous interviews throughout the trailer park had yielded few substantial leads. The timing and placement of the note raised suspicions, but especially given the windy conditions that evening, making it unlikely the note had simply been stumbled upon. This incident also brought Melissa Huckabe to the forefront of the investigation. Prior to this, she had not played a significant role. FBI investigators conducted an in-depth interview with her that night, during which they uncovered her close proximity to Sandra's residence, only 8 trailers down the same street. It was also revealed that Sandra and her sister frequently visited Huckabe's trailer to play with her daughter, highlighting an existing relationship between the families. Melissa Huckabe stated that on the afternoon Sandra went missing, she had gone to her grandfather's nearby church to prepare for Sunday school, where she served as a teacher. While her account was being reviewed, investigators processed the note for fingerprints and formally added Melissa to the list of persons of interest. Following the directions in the note, search and rescue teams were dispatched to drainage ponds located approximately 3 miles outside of town. These ponds, unlike lakes or rivers, were heavily compacted with manure, rendering them unsuitable for diving and severely limiting visibility. Despite extensive efforts, no suitcase or evidence linked to Sandra was recovered. With no solid leads and time slipping away, investigators grew increasingly concerned that the opportunity to find Sandra alive was diminishing. 8-year-old Sandra Cantu had now been missing for 3 days. Detectives turned their focus back to the last known footage of her, meticulously reviewing the surveillance video for subtle clues. Investigators believed that Sandra's actions in the footage might hold critical information, an unspoken message about where she was headed and whom she intended to see. Among the 13 trailers located south of Sandra's home, There was only one place she would typically visit beyond her own residence: Melissa Huckabe's trailer. Detectives attempted to re-interview Huckabe, but discovered she was no longer at home. It was revealed that she had checked herself into a hospital after reportedly swallowing a razor blade, an act that raised immediate concern. In response, authorities stationed a surveillance team at the hospital to monitor her closely, ensuring they would be alerted if she attempted to leave. Then at approximately 10:30 a.m. on Monday, a call came through from dispatch with a message indicating that something significant was unfolding. A 911 call from the sheriff's department triggered an urgent response. Detectives immediately rushed to a pond located at the intersection of Bassetti Road and Whitehall Road, the same location referenced in the anonymous note. The realization was immediate and chilling. This was the exact area the note had mentioned. Upon arrival, officers spotted an object floating in the water. Sergeant Knight confirmed it appeared to be a suitcase. When asked whether he believed Sandra could be inside, his response was cautious. It's 50-50. Despite the hope that the discovery would not confirm their worst fears, instincts suggested otherwise. A growing sense of dread signaled that this could be the heartbreaking breakthrough in the case. As the suitcase was taken to the medical examiner's office for examination, detectives expanded their investigation to the surrounding area of Whitehall Road. At the far eastern end of the road, they interviewed a male resident who reported a peculiar encounter from a couple of weeks earlier. He recalled seeing a purple SUV parked near the ponds by the tree line, an unfamiliar vehicle in an area where he typically recognized all local traffic. The unusual presence prompted him to stop and investigate. Informing his wife of his intent, he approached the vehicle to get a better look. As he circled toward the driver's side, he took note of a spare tire mounted on the back of the SUV. Just as he neared the front of the vehicle, he heard a noise coming from the nearby trees, an unsettling detail that would soon take on greater significance. The man glanced to his left and saw a woman emerging from the bushes. He approached her and asked what she was doing. She casually replied that she had stopped to relieve herself. Though he found the situation unusual, especially in such a remote area, he dismissed it as odd but harmless, thinking perhaps she simply couldn't wait. He chose not to report the incident at the time, believing it was inconsequential. However, that encounter would later become a critical piece of the puzzle. At the coroner's office, forensic specialists began examining the suitcase retrieved from the pond. It was a black and gray Eddie Bauer model, standard in size and secured tightly with white cords. As investigators carefully unzipped the luggage, their worst fears were confirmed. Sandra Ku was inside. She was still dressed in her leggings and Hello Kitty shirt, the same clothes she was last seen wearing. The coroner's findings were devastating. Sandra had been drugged, suffocated, and assaulted in a deeply personal way. The harrowing reality of the crime sent shockwaves through the investigative team and community alike. This was not just a missing persons case, it was now a homicide. And for her mother, Maria Chavez, the loss was beyond comprehension. For any parent, the discovery was a nightmare beyond imagining. The moment authorities confirmed Sandra's body had been found, it shattered the fragile hope her family clung to. Detectives had promised Maria Chavez early on that she would never learn about major developments through the media, and they kept that promise. But the emotional toll of that moment was immense. The news hit like a tidal wave. Shock, screams, tears, a grief so profound it felt as if their world had collapsed. As the investigation deepened, attention turned once again to Melissa Huckabe, who remained in the hospital. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from the day Sandra went missing, hoping for answers. At 3:42 p.m., a female figure was captured walking from the south and getting into a small SUV parked near Sandra's home. Moments later, the vehicle drove back in the direction from which she came. The SUV stood out, two-toned in color, likely purple, with a distinctive spare tire mounted on the rear. The image matched the description given by the witness who had seen the suspicious vehicle near the drainage ponds. This sighting would prove to be a significant piece of evidence in linking Melissa Huckabe to the case. The purple SUV captured on surveillance matched the description of the vehicle seen near the pond where Sandra's body was discovered. Just 20 minutes later, that same SUV was observed leaving the trailer park. At 5:26 p.m., it traveled northbound, heading directly toward the area where the suitcase had been found. Out of all the vehicles that left the trailer park that day, Only one fit that profile, a purple SUV registered to Melissa Huckabe. With growing suspicions, Sergeant Knight and his partner went to the hospital to speak with Melissa for the first time in depth. During the conversation, she appeared visibly anxious. When asked whether she had heard the news about Sandra's body being discovered, she acknowledged the report and expressed sadness. However, her behavior struck the detectives as unusual. Despite claiming to be heartbroken, she never shed a tear. Melissa had mentioned that one of her suitcases had gone missing, around the same time Sandra disappeared from the trailer park. She expressed guilt, suggesting a connection between the two events. When Melissa described the missing suitcase, it matched perfectly with the one found in the pond. Detectives, however, chose not to reveal that detail to her at the time. The case was starting to come together, and investigators felt they were closing in. Upon Melissa's release from the hospital, a search warrant was issued for her trailer. In her bedroom, detectives discovered a notebook. The torn page from that notebook closely matched the paper used in the anonymous note Melissa claimed to have found, a crucial link in the investigation. With no physical evidence of foul play found at her home, the search extended to the church where Melissa worked as a Sunday school teacher. Inside the Sunday school room where Melissa Huckabe taught, detectives noticed something unusual. Every window had intact drawstring cords with plastic pull caps, except for one. The cord on that window appeared to have been cut, and the cap was missing. This detail stood out as the cord closely resembled the one used to secure the suitcase containing Sandra's body. Further investigation revealed a bottle of isopropyl alcohol at the church, the same substance later found in Sandra's liver. In the kitchen, a detective discovered a rolling pin with a bent handle. Under alternative light testing, it tested presumptively positive for bodily fluids. This final piece of evidence helped confirm that the assault and other criminal acts had occurred inside the church, marking a critical turning point in the investigation. On Friday, April 10th, Detective Bauer conducted an interview with Melissa Huckabe. At the outset, Huckabe appeared calm and composed, sitting with her legs crossed and speaking casually about the events surrounding Sandra's disappearance.
I mean, I have nothing to hide. I didn't do anything wrong.
Approximately 3.5 hours into the interview, the tone shifted as Detective Bauer began pressing harder, presenting the mounting evidence.
It was stolen.
Who stole it?
I don't know.
Who would have found him? Nobody took your suitcase. You're the only one you were the last person to see your suitcase. It's not ironic that you were the last person to see your suitcase and no one else saw your suitcase get stolen. And it's not ironic that this is your suitcase here. It's not ironic that Sandra, your daughter's best friend, someone you look at as your daughter, was found in this suitcase.
It was only after being directly confronted with the facts that Huckabe's demeanor changed, and she eventually broke down.
Between 5:30 and 5:40, two people saw your car stopped on Whitehall Road. And they saw you come from out of the bushes. What were you doing, Melissa?
It was an accident. I can't live with myself. I deserve to just die.
Tell me what happened.
Sandra was walking down the road. Sandra was walking and she saw me. And she came up to the car and she saw my suitcase. And my suitcase was inside of my car on the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you before, she likes to hide and play hide and go seek.
Mm-hmm.
And she hid inside of there and I didn't know. I told her I had to go into the house. So I drove to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came outside, I looked at my suitcase. And I went to take it out and it was heavy. And she was in there. And she wasn't breathing or anything.
Her initial explanations were quickly discredited. Investigators had already established that Sandra had been drugged and attacked in a deeply personal way, details that directly contradicted Huckabee's account. Her story was deemed inconsistent and implausible in light of the evidence. The case against Melissa Huckabe came together with devastating clarity. The witness who saw her at the ponds the night Sandra disappeared was a critical piece of the puzzle, reinforcing the forensic and circumstantial evidence investigators had already gathered. With everything pointing to Huckabe, the surveillance footage, the matching SUV, the notebook paper, the blind cords, the isopropyl alcohol, the suitcase, and her own conflicting statements, authorities were confident they had their suspect. Melissa Huckabe was arrested and charged with the kidnapping, assault of a deeply personal nature, and murder of 8-year-old Sandra Ku. A year later, as the trial began, prosecutors presented their theory. Sandra, likely trusting Huckabe as a neighbor and Sunday school teacher, willingly got into the purple SUV. The suitcase was in the back seat. Huckabe lured Sandra to the church under the guise of helping decorate for Sunday school. At the church, Huckabe gave Sandra a drink laced with benzodiazepines, rendering her unconscious. What followed was a horrific sequence of abuse. Sandra was ultimately killed, placed in the suitcase, which was bound with the cord from the blinds, and then disposed of in a drainage pond filled with manure. Mid-trial, faced with overwhelming evidence and likely to avoid the death penalty, Melissa Huckabe pleaded guilty to kidnapping and murder. The plea meant no full trial would play out in court, sparing Sandra's family and the community the pain of hearing the details in full. But it also left many with unanswered questions about motive and what exactly drove Huckabe to commit such a heinous act. In exchange for her guilty plea, prosecutors agreed to drop the charge related to a deeply personal assault. Melissa Huckabe was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her motives remain unclear, and her actions are widely regarded as senseless and deeply disturbing. The murder of 8-year-old Sandra Ku was an act of incomprehensible cruelty, one that defied reason and shocked an entire community. Sandra's disappearance and tragic death brought the town of Tracy together in grief and solidarity. To the people of Tracy, Sandra was more than just a neighbor. She was seen as everyone's child. Her vibrant spirit and joyful presence had touched many lives in her short 8 years. The loss of such a young, innocent life left a profound void, a painful reminder of what was taken and what could have been. Over time, the pain softened for some, but the memory of Sandra remains deeply embedded in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. Her story serves as a lasting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring strength of a community united in love, mourning, and remembrance. What do you think motivates someone to commit such a senseless and tragic crime? And can justice ever truly be served in cases like this? How can communities come together to protect their most vulnerable members and support families affected by such tragedies? Thank you for watching. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this heartbreaking case. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.